even know if this is our intro music. This came on the podcast machine that I got. Is this a stock noise or someone else's? I don't know. We'll find out.
Stephen R. Covey once said, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply." We have something to say worth listening to. This is Real Talk. Real Talk. The podcast. Telling the story and lessons learned of industry leaders, entrepreneurs, professional athletes, and the movers and shakers of the business world. Have you been told no? Have you been told that you can't do it? Have you been told that you'll never get to the next level? That noise. Yeah, we said it. We're telling you you can do it, and you can get to the next level. If others have done it, so can you. Real Talk. This is Real Talk, the podcast. And this is your host, Mason.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is Mason, and we are back with another episode of Real Talk. Today, we are joined by a man who has quite the diverse career with one major commonality: success. He's given away over $1 billion. He's helped solve the largest U.S. lottery fraud of all time. And he took over a failing zoo that he then turned into a major success. Now a keynote speaker and a two-time published author of the books The $80 Billion Gamble and Dare to Dream, Dare to Act. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our guest today, Terry Rich. Terry, what's going on, my man? Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. You know, with all those disclaimers in the opening, now that I'd be able to say right at the end, void or prohibited, member FDIC. I love having fun. It's a great life, and things have gone well.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing right now, and we'll kind of dive into your story a little bit.
Well, right now I'm retired from 4 really fun jobs in life. I got lucky. I started on the farm and then have 4 diverse. We can talk a little bit about those jobs. But currently I'm doing professional speaking around the world on that $80 billion gamble, how we had a lottery ticket, Bigfoot, and 2 hot dogs helped solve the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history. So I talk a lot about that, and we're producing a couple of documentaries on that and another idea that we created back in 2000 this year. So you should be able to see those on a few of the streaming networks coming up here in the next 12 months.
Excellent. So do a lot of your speaking engagements, do they focus kind of around your previous jobs and the kind of the lessons you learned, or tell us a little bit about what you speak on and kind of the message there?
Well, I actually have two different speeches. One is Dare to Dream, Dare to Act. It's how to creatively brainstorm and break it in 2 parts, coming up with the ideas and then acting on the ideas, because a lot of people have ideas, but they don't know how to take the next step and act on them. They always feel that when they get a quick failure that they quit. The second one is the $80 billion gamble, and that really tells a story of the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history, how a guy tried to scam us, but also talks about lessons learned. So if you're in a church organization or a school or any kind of business, of why people steal internally. People worry a lot about fraud, of trying to hack into you, but internally is just as important to watch out for.
Absolutely. So let's dive into a little bit about what kind of got you here. Tell us, because
Sure.
I know a little bit about your background. Everyone else doesn't, but it's pretty interesting. Let's say that it's not very orthodox.
Well, you're sitting in the middle of the United States on a small town farm in Iowa. I grew up there, and my dad always said, you know, whenever I tried to do something new, he always gave me encouragement, you know, good, bad, or indifferent. Even if it didn't work, he said, well, how about trying it this way or whatever? So I went to college. He said, hey, go out and make yourself living in the world rather than farming. And I started in cable television. And this one, cable wasn't cool. I got to know people like Ted Turner, helped start MTV, CNN, all of the different cable channels in the day when nobody, they had 4 channels. Why do I need any more channels? But I won't pay another $6 for additional channels. Well, now what are we paying? 150. So
Yeah,
I was
you
in
will.
the cable television business in both television production and in marketing over the years. And we bought a lot of cable systems across the U.S. We were the 10th largest cable company. So I became vice president of marketing and also did the programming contracts for years. But about age 29, I got a whole kind of different break because at the same time, and I've always tried to have 2 jobs going at all times. I was a rock and roll radio DJ on the weekend, working cable television during the week. But I had a call from my hometown, that little farm, and a guy said, "Hey, we want to have a centennial. We don't know how many years we've been around, but we're going to have a centennial." And it's a town of 50 people. And he said, "Would you help us with the publicity?" Well, I'd never really written a press release before, but we got together, started brainstorming this daring to dream with ideas. And he looked at me and said, "Well, you're our most famous person because you have been on the radio and TV." I thought, man, if I'm the most famous, we better adopt somebody. So I sat down and wrote a press release, and we talked about what could we, if we adopted a celebrity just for the one day of the centennial, what could we give away? And we figured a free oil and lube. There's a local gas station there. We give away a free cemetery plot. Then we had a questionnaire. Have you ever chewed tobacco? Have you ever owned a pair of bib overalls? Made it really hokey. Long story short, I sat down and wrote 44. I printed them out in the old mimeograph. We did 44 press releases out to the media, and I had to go to a library in the next town to find that many because I printed too many. I didn't know that many media outlets. Long story short, the next morning at 9 o'clock, I get the first call, and I only got one call. I failed on all 44 calls, or all 44 letters except one, and it was a guy that said, "Hey, this is I'm a reporter for United Press International, and we'd like to do this, put it on the national wires." I said, okay. So I didn't know what UPI was. So I gave him a couple quotes. He hung up. 30 minutes later, I get a call from a guy that says, "Hey, this is Jim McCauley. I'm a talent coordinator for The Tonight Show. And Johnny saw it. He was born in Iowa. He likes it. We want to do something with this. We're going into a meeting, but you got to guarantee us with all the real people and all of the different reality shows going on that we will be first." Yeah, I think we could say the Carson Show could be first. So, long story short,
Johnny Carson can take that.
Yeah, it was an easy decision when it was all said and done.
Right.
So, with all of that, it really started the career because they came out, spent 3 days in Cooper, fell in love with it, actually talked about getting a satellite uplink to uplink this programming, the Tonight Show, the entire Tonight Show, first time ever, from
What year was
Cooper,
this?
Iowa. They said, if we do that, we'll guarantee a front cover of Time, Newsweek, all of. Well, I about fell over. What the heck is going on here? Well, they went back and realized they had a couple of complications on the production side to get everybody to Cooper. So they decided to bring 3 of us out. So I got to go be on the Tonight Show at age 29, 20 million people. We had the first 20 minutes in front of Tom Jones, 2 commercial breaks. But that really isn't the fun part of the story of what really launched my career. I came back after all of that publicity, and I was working for this cable company, and we were doing free HBO previews. And when you do a free HBO preview, basically you turn on your TV on a basic channel, like, "Hey, Marge, they're showing us HBO free movies." They thought somebody messed around with the cable outside. Well, we were actually doing that and going town to town to turn it on in that town and show HBO and then try to get people to buy it. And I thought, satellite uplink, if I could do that from here, why can't I do just one preview and send it to all of our cable systems? And so we did that. About a year later, we got a satellite dish. It shot up 23,500 miles, came back down to all of our cable subscribers, and sold $15 million worth of cable in one weekend, worth of HBO. So that was the first big success when it was all said and done. So that was really fun.
What year was all this going on? I'm curious about with the
this
satellite
was
uplinks.
1981. That's a long time ago. And
Wow.
and I was 29. I was talking to Andrew Dice Clay afterwards, helping him with a pay-per-view special. He couldn't believe that I paneled. If you get to sit on the couch with Johnny, that was paneling, and comedians always wanted to do that. But lo and behold, my dad's great advice of, work hard for somebody. When you turn 62, you'll be happy. You'll get your Social Security. It all came to an end when I was 40 because The Bass brothers took a run at our stock. We were a New York Stock Exchange company. We thought we were going to have a hostile takeover, so we did this thing called the leverage buyout, which gave all of the executives money and stock options. They cashed us out at 40. So here I am sitting at 40 years old. I had all the money I wanted, all the publicity I'd ever thought I'd ever get, and I didn't have a job. So you have to decide, what do you do? Well, that was the break that really made it really fun and profitable. I decided to start my own company. And you know that idea of the Carson Show? I took the idea of using a satellite uplink and selling cable product to cable subscribers, not only for our company, but all the other cable companies like Time Warner, Comcast. And so we did these free previews for all these different organizations. So I went from being in a New York Stock Exchange company to an entrepreneur. And boy, did I learn a lot on finance and all the legal, all the things that I needed to learn. It was so much fun because the thing took off, and we were doing these free previews for ESPN, pay-per-view events that we did, the Bo Holyfield fights, all of these different things, and it really went well. So I found myself at 49 years of age, just turning 50, thinking, no, not midlife crisis, thinking, I just want to back it down and be with my family and do something completely different, maybe give back to the community. So I got a call from the ex-governor, and he said, hey, they're going to shut down the state-run zoo and city-run zoo, and we'd like to take it over and make a nonprofit. Would you be interested in running a zoo? You know what? I grew animals on the farm. Why not a zoo? Giraffes, monkeys. I don't know. I didn't know much about running a zoo, but yeah, it sounded easy.
So you didn't have an animal background. You just had like a leadership background at this point, right?
I had a leadership background at this point, plus farm background, but I didn't know anything about exotic animals. But in running a zoo, I found you really didn't need to know. You needed to do what basic business is you got to have more income than you have expenses. They were losing $600,000 a year, and they were looking for new ideas. And it was really easy to turn around. We not only turned it around, but we raised $14 million in endowment so that it's around forever, just the interest off the money, and also made it the second largest cultural attraction in the state. So it was fun, and a couple ideas that are pretty simple. People say, oh, you got to spend $1 million to have a new exhibit. Well, what we did was we looked around and said, what could we do for something different? We know we've got every kid 2 to 10, so let's find out a way to get, at that point we called them the millennials, and we figured, what do millennials like better than anything else? You got the answer to this one, Mason?
Technology.
Booze. Alcohol.
I was gonna say I was gonna say for the parents. Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I figured that when you had a cold drink in your hand. So we started something called Zoo Brew, where we closed the zoo. At night we opened it up just for adults, no kids, served booze, had bands, left all the exhibits out, and lo and behold, immediately started cash flowing. Last year they did $250,000 just in booze at Zoo Brews at that zoo. So we came up with those ideas, turned it around, and then I got a call that said, hey, the lottery director is about to retire. Would you like running the lottery? Well, that's about as good a promotion and giving away money and doing all that. It's not my money to give away. So I said, heck yeah.
Right.
So we ran the lottery, and as you can tell, I like promotion. I like all of these things. But lo and behold, the middle of it, we had to crack the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history, and it became very serious and a little bit scary. We didn't know whether it was organized in trying to fraud the lottery when we found out there was a problem. But ultimately found the person who did it, got him in prison up to 25 years, and that was the end of the story and the lessons that we learned. Something kind of serious in the end of my career, but you can see went from farmer to cable to entrepreneur to zoo and finally lottery. It's about as different as anybody could do, but what a fun life.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the time at the zoo. They were in the hole $600K, and then you erased the in the wholeness and put them in the positive. Did they have a problem with expenses or a problem with revenue? Were they overspending or not generating enough?
Government run, because the government wants to give everything as cheap as possible, and if you have a bad month or bad year, you're immediately in the hole. We said, let's make all the money we can. The zookeeper said, well, we need more money for our exhibits and all of the animal care and husbandry that you have. So I looked at what they were charging, $495 for entrance to the zoo, and I said, well, nobody is going to think the zoo is worth anything if you're charging $4.95. So we immediately doubled it to $9.95. They call that price pointing in marketing, knowing that the zoo down the road was charging $30 a day for adults. But what we also did was say, we're going to give away free tickets to all the inner city kids, anybody that wants to come in. We told the people at the front desk, if somebody comes in and says, oh my gosh, it's too expensive, I don't know if we can afford this, I said to the front, just let them in. Tell them, just go on in. Enjoy it. It's a public asset and it's a fun deal. Well, that immediately cash flowed us because we were taking in twice as much money. More people came because they thought it was worth more because you were charging more. You get what you pay for, so to speak. And then all the additional events, and we started weddings. We started selling beer at special events. All of that together combined to just all of a sudden becoming a little more, we used to use the word hip, but being just a little more modern, a little more on the edge of what we were doing.
Now, did you ever have a time at the zoo where something crazy happened, like, I don't know, like an elephant got out, or like you got to have a crazy zoo story?
There's always a crazy zoo story. I had two. 1 week into the job, I get a call. Oh my God, come down here now. We're in trouble. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, they had two zookeepers who handled the tigers, and they let them out, in the morning and the evening. And in the middle of the exhibit was a pond, but you had to go out before you let the tigers out and open the spigot, go down into a manhole and open the spigot, and let the water into the pond, and then get out and go in, and everybody'd open the door and let the tigers out. Well, the second person thought the first person had already opened it and come back in, and they opened up the door and let the tiger into the same exhibit as a guy down in the hole trying to turn on the water. So they didn't know what to do. The protocol would have said, grab the shotgun, 10-gauge shotgun with slugs, kill the tiger. That's just protocol for safety. But instead, the keepers love their animals, and so they jumped out, the other zookeepers, and sprayed one side of the exhibit at the tiger. It went over. The guy got up and ran out. Everybody was fine. But that's just starting out on the first one to know what's going out. Another time, we had a flamingo that didn't get its wings clipped after it was born. And all of a sudden, we looked up, there's a flamingo flying around the zoo, which we ultimately had the press and the fire department and everybody else come out, and we caught it and put it back in and made sure that wasn't going to happen again. So, yeah, there's always a few. But my favorite, we look for ways to raise money that don't cost much, because building an exhibit's $1 to $2 million. So we found an exhibit to bring in, a traveling exhibit, and it was called the Scoop on Poop. And the idea was kids could come in and look and see what a monkey poop looks like, and an elephant poop looks like, and all these different kind of poops. So I looked around, and I'm thinking, how do we make more money out of this deal? And what's the one thing zoos have more than anything else is poop.
Poop.
So we started selling tiger poop, figuring that a tiger is a predator, and white-tailed deer in the Midwest are prey. So if people took and bought this tiger poop and put it around their flowers, they would keep the deer away. And lo and behold, it worked. That summer, we sold $25,000 worth of tiger poop in gallon buckets. And then at the end of the exhibit, we found out the USDA said you can't sell exotic tiger poop. That's not really legal. So.
But the profit margin on poop's got to be great, huh? 100%?
It was really good. Cost us a little to get the food in them to begin with, but after that, it worked out all right. So those are a couple of fun zoo stories.
I imagine like a phone call or a letter from, you said it was the FDA who contacted you?
The USDA, States Department.
Oh, the USDA. Like, yeah. I can imagine they'd be like, are you guys selling poop? And you're like, yeah. Oh, it's one of our best sellers, actually. Are you guys interested?
And just so you know, it smells like sour milk. If you ever wondered what.
So from the zoo, so you told us how you went on to run the Iowa State Lottery. What's involved in running a lottery? Like when you say you ran the lottery, what is that?
Well, running a lottery is the director is usually appointed by the governor, so it's a pretty political position. Most people only are in the job 1 to 1.5 years. It's pretty good pay. And when I went in, I knew it was marketing. If you want more tickets sold, more profits for good causes within the state, it's marketing. So the basics were pretty easy to go from 60 million to 70, 75, 76. I mean, it was going well. Every day when you're a state official, you think it may be your last. You say the wrong thing publicly, you get in the paper, you're done. Most people think you're real close with the governor and all the other officials. Not at all. Basically, in state government, each department is run by somebody, and you're appointed, and then they tell you good luck, and if you screw up, you'll be fired. We'll talk to you, only if you need it. It's a kind of a weird, lonely place in its own way because of the politics. But we had a really good staff already there. The guy before me had retired. So it's basically thinking about new games. What do we add? What do we change? It's basic blocking and tackling and marketing. What would excite you? Is Powerball where you want the big jackpots, or is it scratch tickets where you get less money or you get more quick money, but not the big jackpots? It's not as big a win when you do it. So those all appeal to different people. You work it together, and then nationally, Powerball and Mega Millions, we met as directors and ran the national games and changed those around over the years, and it was fun. I was part of the deal to go to $2 for Powerball and get that $1.5 billion jackpot ultimately that was the largest jackpot ever on that game.
So tell us about, like, what's the point of a lottery? What is, like why would a state have a lottery? Where does the money come from? You guys just print it, right?
Gambling has been around forever, legal or illegal. And what was found was that people were doing, especially the organized crime on the East Coast, doing a lot of illegal numbers games and the others. So the U.S. government, somebody decided that it's going to be a state-run deal, not a national-run deal. If somebody wants a lottery, and the state has to approve it. So states started doing their own individual lottery. And the concept is all the organized crime. If you're playing in, I'm not going to use a state, but playing in some state that has organized crime and still run numbers, and you're betting, you don't know how fair and honest that is. You don't know who to talk to if you're upset and you think somebody's just hosed you. But if you run it by the state, it's much more honest. It's, you can go to the lottery director, you can go to the governor, you can go to your state representative. So that's the concept of why states began doing it, to try to beat out organized crime in the deal. And then the concept is profits, which is about 25 cents on every dollar spent. 25 cents goes back to the state, can either be spent however the state wants, on education, just put it in the general fund against taxes, on whatever they want. So that's kind of the way that it works. Now, it depends what people like. If you're a slot player and you really like to pull it and have all these different options, then you probably like scratch tickets best. And scratch tickets have the highest payout. So that's anywhere from 60 to 75, 80% of the monies go back. But it's much smaller prizes, and that's used. They call it churning, so that people who play a lot usually like the scratch tickets. Powerball and Mega Millions were designed for those that were occasional players that just really wanted a big jackpot. And that payout, 50 cents of every dollar goes into the jackpot. So that's a much lower payout. You won't win as much. And the small prizes aren't as many. But everybody's dreaming the dream of what would happen if I won that big $1 million or $150 million or $1.5 billion jackpot. And that's the desire of that one. So scratch tickets are pretty easy to predict and when to be sold, but lottery, Mega Millions, Powerball, the sales really will happen when the jackpot gets bigger and the whole murmur underneath of everybody talking about water cooler talk gets going.
Now, is all the money, like the prize money, the pool that is distributed out, is that all from ticket sales? Does any of it come from any other source?
All of the money in the lottery stays in the lottery and pays the prizes. Anything left over that's profit goes back to the state and spent on how they set it up, whether it's education again or
I guess I'm asking, like, where does the money come from? Is it come from like purchasing the tickets or any taxes?
All money comes from the lottery ticket sales. Now, It's a pretty interesting business model. It's a little different than thinking about betting on a sports, because sports, you never really know if that last play happens or not, if it's a legit game, all of the things that are there. In the lottery, the scratch tickets and even Powerball to the great extent, you sell 100 tickets, you're going to make 25% of the monies that are spent on it. So you never lose money on the lottery. Lottery averages 25% profits over the year. So it's all based on people buying. And you'll pretty much find that. People ask me, well, I can play now that I'm not in the lottery. So how do I play? I like to, if I've got $20, I'll buy 10 $2 tickets of the same ticket. If I've got $100, I'll buy 10 of the $10 scratch tickets. And the reason I do that is I know every third or fourth or fifth, there's at least a little bit of a win. I like to at least win. But in general, if you spend $100, you probably will only win $75 unless you get really lucky and hit one of the bigger amounts. So, people, it's a pretty interesting business model. People love it because you're always thinking, yeah, there could be a chance. I see there's 100,000 in the grand prize. I'm going to try that.
People love it, man. They do. The idea that, you could take $10 and turn it into, 100 times that, 1,000 times that, 10,000 times that is like, it's very alluring.
It definitely is, but it's a business model that will guarantee that when it's all said and done, $1 million, 250, that's right, $250,000 of it will be kept and given to good causes, and that's the beauty of what the lottery is. I mean, if you don't win, then you kind of feel good that you're helping education or something else.
So it was originally it was like, hey, like we can shut down a gambling black market by just making it legal. And I mean, if this is going to happen either way, we might as well get a piece of it, right?
That's exactly right. And if I don't like the results or I think something's screwy, I know where I can go, the lottery office,
right.
or I can go
there's
to
transparency there.
My governor and say, I think if it's, something happens in organized crime, you've lost your money.
So in this role, you uncover the largest U.S. lottery fraud of all time. Can you dive into that a little bit and tell us about, like, just tell us a little bit about how you
get
catch
to get
it.
up and give the big checks. All those things are going great, and in the midst of it, we got a winner, and no one came forward. And you have 12 months to claim a big lottery jackpot. It was a regional game. 17 states pooled their money together for something called Hot Lotto, and it was a $16.5 million annuitized grand prize. Lo and behold, Iowa got the winner instead of one of the other states, because we all pool our money together, then send it out, whoever wins. Nobody showed up, so we started barking, hey, now's the time, call that you have 1 year now till next January to pick it up. Nobody came forward.
How did you guys know you had a winner if no one came forward?
Yeah, we know immediately. It's amazing. This is why a lottery is so secure, is that every time you touch the lottery systems, check your ticket, buy a ticket, we know right where that ticket's purchased, what it looks like, all of those sort of things. And we have also security in it so that our security group's the only one that knows certain numbers on that ticket. So, it's really tough to fraud that. But nobody came forward for 11 months until a lawyer in Canada stepped forward and said, hey, I think I have the ticket and I want you to send me the money. I'll send you the ticket. Ding, ding, ding. What the heck is going on here? So we pressed him, and he called back and said, well, I actually didn't buy the ticket. So we immediately classified it as a fraud case, got the DCI, Department of Criminal Investigation, got our Attorney General's office. And we were going to arrest him right away because we just didn't feel right. Why do you wait 11 months to claim $16.5 million? Well, then he told us that he got it from a lawyer in New York. This was a lawyer in Canada, got it from a lawyer in New York, who told us he got a lawyer in Texas that got it to him who had a client. But nobody knew who the client was. Well, it just stunk to high heaven. Ultimately, they tried to come in and claim it 2 hours before it was to expire. Again, stinks like a skunk. So we decided not to pay it. We just said we're not paying it, and opened an investigation. And 2 years later, after a lot of investigation, it all boiled down to following up with this client in Houston, Texas. His name was Robert Rhodes. And when we knew it was Robert Rhodes, we couldn't figure out how he did it. And all of a sudden, we were running against, they call it a statute of limitations. If we're going to charge somebody for fraud, we had to do it. So we decided to release the video of the purchase. And almost any time you walk into a convenience store today, we know what you bought by the time that you touch the ticket in the lottery machine. We know what you look like. Your camera, of course, we don't look at it unless something like this happens. Right. And all of these security features there. So we released the tape, and everybody said, wait a minute, that's Eddie Tipton. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Eddie Tipton, he's the guy who works for this multi-state lottery, not the Iowa lottery, but the national group that does the drawings for Hot Lotto, does the drawings for Powerball. But he convinced them that we should do drawings for this Hot Lotto game by computer. And he had rigged the computer by putting programming in it that once a year, it had to be specifically on a date that had to be drawn on a Wednesday, on this and this and this and this. If that happened, he could figure it out within 200 combinations. So he had it really complicated. So our security and audit folks couldn't just find this whole deal. Well, we broke Eddie Tipton. We they let him go. We charged him, and we charged the guy in Texas. And that's, we thought would be the end of it. So in July, Eddie Tipton was found guilty, 2 5-year sentences. But what happened next took it nationally. We thought this was just a little Iowa gag and fraud, and it was all over. But nope, his brother came up to testify. And it wasn't a real intelligent decision, because his brother sat on the stand and said, you know what? That ain't my brother. He bought 2 hot dogs when he bought that. My brother ain't a hot dog guy. It was so funny that the AP, Associated Press, put it on the national wires, and it ended up in this brother's hometown where he was a public official, a sheriff's deputy, or I don't know exactly what he was, but long story short, an FBI agent said, wait a minute, that's the guy we investigated for money fraud. He had a whole bunch of cash. And so they called up and said, you ought to check his brother out to see if he was involved in it too. And lo and behold, we figured out that not only was his brother involved, his best friend was involved, and Eddie Tipton was involved, but they'd been doing it since 2003 when Eddie first came to work for this organization. He rigged this drawing machine, which was done by computer. Now, I always like to mention Powerball and Mega Million is not done by computer, it's done by balls. And I think it may be a little more secure, but obviously in any organization, people try to figure out ways to beat the system. Eddie found a way to beat the system, and they had ultimately frauded, I think, 6 or 7 different lottery jackpots. And because of it all, we busted him. He's been in prison for quite a while. He's up to 25 years in prison for this. His brother got 75 days as a plea deal, and the other one got probation and an ankle monitor as part of his deal. So it was the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history when you combine them all together, and was not something I ever want to go through again. Public officials, if you work at a city, or even if you work at a church or a school, you got to have checks and balances. And so that's kind of the message I've been putting out as I do my speeches, a pretty serious one of make sure one person writes the checks, the other person does the purchase orders. You have at least 2 people on any financial transactions.
Wow, that's like almost needs a movie.
Interesting you say that. I think you may see something in the next year. And then we'll go back to the second speech, which is New Ideas. I'll tell you about the second documentary that's being edited at this point. It's fun. But yeah. It is a strange story, and one that, 80% of the people in America play lottery. So people can relate, and they just want it fair. And I truly believe out of the billions and billions of draws that happen every day in the world, I only know of about, 6 or 7 where something happened. The last big one in the United States was 1980, and that's the one that turned out John Travolta movie Lucky Numbers, where a draw officer for ping pong balls and the auditor got together, and they put paint in all the balls but the 2s and 4s, and then they bought all the 2 and 4 combinations for that draw. They got caught because the mafia also used those draws in their numbers games, and they immediately saw something was screwy and alerted the officials, and they got busted and thrown in jail too. So, but you see, even with balls or computer, it all boils down to the checks and balances and making sure that you have some security there as you look at your organization.
That reminds just kind of a little. Have you heard the McDonald's monopoly fraud? Exactly. Yeah.
That's a lot like McDonald's.
It's eerie the way that like the insider, and it had been happening for years, and it's just so crazy because you said this guy worked for the lottery, right?
He worked for the National Lottery Association that that ran many of the national games. He didn't work for the Iowa
I
lottery,
just,
which made
I
it
just
kind
feel
of
like
tough because everybody kept saying, don't mess this up. You're messing around. In America, I think it's about $10-12 billion spent on sports tickets, 8 or 9, $10 million on music, and all. You add it all together, it's over $80 billion is spent on lottery. More spent on lottery in a year than all of the music, movies, sports
really,
combined. And so, my counterparts in other states are saying, hey, if you're wrong, you're screwing with a lot of money here, our money possibly. So, why don't you just, some said, drop it, just pay it, and we said, no, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And I think
right.
everybody has sold more lottery tickets when it's all said and done because they know that people are watching, and individuals, you've got the checks and balances. So I think that's a good thing.
For sure, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about this. You said about the second documentary it's being edited.
Oh, okay. So I love new ideas. I've been known as the idea dude. And when I do this Dare to Dream, Dare to Act, I talk about how to come up with ideas and then to act on them. So remember, I was doing these free previews for HBO and Showtime and Disney Channel, all those. Well, I would go out and produce something in LA, come home on the weekend or come home on Monday, and I really didn't own anything. I got a heck of a check and it was fun and we made a lot of money for the companies and for our company, but we didn't own anything. So I thought, we got to do a TV show of some sort. So my partner, Liz Gilman, and I looked around and we realized the number one show on cable television for years and years and years and years is World Wrestling Federation, WWE, they call it today. So we thought, why don't we find a show like that and do it with another sport? Because wrestling, you're pretty much done as a wrestler when you get out of college. There's really a lot of pro wrestling you can do. So what other sport isn't really well known, aren't paying their athletes, but still, people kind of enjoy it? Soccer. So we decided to start something called Soccer Slam, Soccer Slam. We incorporated World Wrestling Federation. We made teams up from New York and Miami and LA, so it made it look really USC. And we produced 4 shows on an indoor ice arena. We put turf down, put a great big net on the back. We did full contact indoor soccer, and then had all these storylines where the coach is messing around with one of the players' wives and all these underlying stories. Somebody gets thrown in jail for gambling, all these kind of things. We produced 4 shows and got it on Fox Sports World and then recut them in Spanish for Galavision. Well, Fox Sports World told us they got more hate mail from the soccer purists than anything they've ever received. We also got calls from colleges that were going nuts. They were buying all this merchandise. But it was a really expensive show to produce. So we kept doing the HBO stuff, let that kind of go to the wayside for a little bit. And then we went to the game show stop, and we realized somebody had put out a Soccer Slam game, but yet we owned all the rights. Well, long story short, Sony owns the game rights now for the Soccer Slam game, and we own the TV rights. So again, forget about it. But let's go 20 years. This was 2000. 20 years later, last December, I get this call. It's kind of like the call I got from the Tonight Show, the talent coordinator. Guy says, hey, I'm a sports writer for theathletic.com, and I found this show on the internet called Soccer Slam. Did you help with that? I said, yeah, we created it. He says, well, my boss, I told him about it. And he said, oh, I saw that. Those are crazy. Let's do a feature story. So they did a 72-page feature story on the internet with all of these great comments about Sock Slam. He said, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Need another beer. This is crazy. And we were very politically incorrect on a lot of the things that we said and did in it, the realm of the 90s. But this big article came out, and all of a sudden we started getting calls. We'd like to do something with that, And I started thinking, you know what? The Rock just bought the XFL for $15 million. So people are looking for extreme sports today. Soccer is much bigger today than it ever was. So he said, I'd like to do a documentary on the making of Soccer Slam. So for the last 3 months, they've been shooting the making of Soccer Slam. And I think you'll probably see that at some point. So we'll see what happens. Maybe we revive it again and start producing more shows. But it was really fun because we did things like we created a brown card. So instead of a red or a yellow, if you know anything about soccer,
right,
we had a brown card because one of the guys kept farting in one of the shows. So. We it's all of those kind of little stupid things that made it sophomoric humor is what we tried to incorporate in the show. So we'll see where that goes. That should be out later this year, and then you may see something on the whole Eddie Tipton deal. He gets out of prison, I think, on probation later this year.
Oh man, that would be. I can definitely see myself watching both of those, especially with soccer. I feel like you were just too early because soccer in the last 10 years, I feel like in America has exploded.
We definitely were early, and
Yeah.
we definitely would play it a little bit differently. I mean, we'd change all sorts of stuff. One would keep it politically correct. We thought it was funny that one of the teams were Hispanic, so we had the New York team say, "Go back on your boat to Cuba." Well, we know that wouldn't work today. On the flip
Different
side,
times,
the
though.
reason we did that was we knew because if you can believe this, I think that I don't know if WWE is this way, but we had the shows rigged because we knew we wanted the scores to be tied or behind, so the other team wins. So the Hispanic team won, kind of in retaliation for all this racism that they heard when they were on the field. So
Sure.
I mean, that's kind of how we're playing. It was all said and done. So we'll
Did
see
you
where
ever
it all goes.
Did you ever see slam ball with
Oh
basketball?
yeah, slam ball. Actually, in our opinion, they stole from Soccer Slam, stole our slam, and
Oh,
you see these will be. I think these will be and can be much more entertaining because more people are playing soccer, and it seems we really had some cool shots. We had some of the top professional indoor players who were doing bicycle kicks and all just crazy dribbles and stuff that made it fun. And then we set up a few where they call it nutmeg, where it's if somebody's coming against you and they kick the ball between your legs and go around and score. That's called the nutmeg. So we had some really good players. I think that would make the difference.
so tell us, you've had this huge run of success in your career. You've had some super awesome jobs, and now it's all kind of come to a peak. And tell us a little bit deeper about your speaking career now, what you're doing, writing books and stuff. Tell us a little bit more about how that's transpired for you.
Well, I got the 2 books written really to support the speeches. I'm telling you, when I was president of the North American Lottery Association, we'd hire speakers at $40,000 to $50,000 for an hour speech, and I'm thinking, I can do that. That seems easy enough. So it takes a few years to build it up. You get a good agent going, and basically, I do the months that I want to do, and block off the months I want to travel, and I go do a speech like I did one in Munich last year, and they paid me for the hour speech, great money, first class ticket to Munich, and then I traveled around for a week in Germany just looking around. So that is the most ideal retirement job I ever thought. Now, it took me 4 or 5 years to build up to this point, and then the pandemic, I've been doing most of them via just like this on virtual presentations, but it's starting to pick back up to get out, and it's a really fun ending career. But it's been successful. People remember your success. They often don't remember your failures. I had failures throughout my careers, but as I talk about in Daring to Dream, Daring to Act, I had a grandchild who came over and crawled over to the couch, and when they pulled themselves up, they took their very first step. And what happened? Boom! They fell down, right? Then they pulled themselves over and took 2 steps. Then boom! Fell again. Well, if you quit when something fails on the very first attempt, you'll never succeed. You got to realize that you've got to continue to adjust and continue to change. And that's why anybody who's in business has to continue to look at ways to expand their business and do it in a way that is up with the times, I guess you could say, and continue it. So, yeah, we've had a lot of success. I've been a little crazy in some of the things I've tried, but I basically, once I hit the success after the cable and I had the money, I took 10% of the money and used that as R&D. I didn't spend all my money. I didn't bankroll my house. I didn't do any of that to start any new project. I did it with monies that came from profits, 10% of it, so I could take 90% and have some money to play with and have fun with and keep my bank account going for retirement, and kept the 10% to say, well, what's the craziest thing I want to do today? In that way, I could always succeed.
No, that's all. And it's only a testament to your success over your long career that you were able to do that, and set yourself up like that. So, congratulations on that, because it sounds like you're doing what you want to do and you're having a great time doing it.
It's absolutely been a great life, and again, it doesn't say that nothing ever goes wrong. Everybody's gonna have a bad day or something goes south. You just always want to have a protection when that stuff happens.
No, I heard that. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have like 1,000 other meetings to get to today, so thank you for taking the time out today to talk to us. One last thing I want to do before you leave. I do this thing called Real Talk Rapid Fire, where basically I'm just going to shoot you a bunch of questions. They're real simple.
Let's do it.
Don't even think about it. Just come on back. All right.
I like this. Go for it.
Let me get my list. All right.
17. That's my first answer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Netflix or Hulu?
What's that?
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Do you like your pizza cut in triangles or squares?
Triangles.
Does pineapple on pizza bother you?
Yes.
I don't know why it bothers people. What was your first car?
1978 Dodge Monaco.
What was your first job?
Shoveling excrement on the farm. Cleaning out hog barns.
What's your favorite city in America?
Ooh, there's a good one. That's a tough one. I like, I guess I'm Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh, I just like that name. Holy cow. All right.
It's so good they named it twice.
Yeah, no kidding. What's your favorite city outside of America?
I'd have to say Oslo, Norway.
Okay. Favorite book?
Love Story.
Who wrote that? Do you know?
That was back in the 70s. Ryan McNeil, they did a movie on it.
All right.
It was easy to read.
Are aliens real?
I think so.
Last question. Will you come back in 100 episodes to check back in with us, share some more knowledge, and tell us some more stories?
Absolutely. And give some ideas. I'll give you $1 million idea during that. I've got 2 million ideas for the next time we get together.
I'll take all the ideas you got. But Terry, thank you so much for joining us today again. For anybody who wants to get a hold of you, learn more about you, give us I'll put all this in the description below as well. But give us the full rundown of how to get a hold of you, where they can look stuff up about you, and all that good jazz.
Sure. It's pretty easy. TerrySpeaks.com. TERRY speaks.com will get you right to my website. Show you the 2 different presentations you can contact if you're looking for somebody for a conference or a speaker. And I'm also on LinkedIn, and not quite as much on Facebook, but LinkedIn's probably been the best results on business that I've seen.
Excellent, guys. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and watching today. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and check Terry out. And until next time, we're out.
You've been listening to Real Talk with Mason. Make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. We hope you've had fun. We know we did, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Mason on Instagram at Real Talk with Mason. Walter Badgett once said, "The greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do." And we tend to agree. Till next time.